They say blood is thicker than water. A comforting lie, isn't it? Especially when that blood flows with the icy chill of betrayal, eager to drain you dry. My parents, the very people who brought me into this world, the ones who were supposed to be my unwavering protectors, they tried to orchestrate the ultimate heist, to steal the one tangible piece of love my grandmother, Nana Rose, ever left me, my home. They wanted to sell it out from under me, to liquidate my inheritance, to leave me adrift with absolutely nothing but a hollow echo of promises. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly fathom in their self-absorbed world, was that I possessed a secret. A powerful, legally binding weapon, intricately woven into the very fabric of Nana's last will and testament. A secret that would not only save my beloved home but would also rip back the curtain on their meticulously crafted facade of familial concern, exposing the raw, ugly truth of their greed. The moment of revelation? Their faces turned a ghostly, sickening pale. Their confident smiles dissolved into grotesque masks of story disbelief. They never saw it coming, not in their wildest, most self-serving dreams. Little did they know, their carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around them, one forgotten clause at a time. If you've ever felt like your own family has systematically undervalued, dismissed, or outright betrayed you, hit that like button right now. And please, let me know in the comments below, because trust me, you are absolutely not alone in that painful experience. My name is Julie, and my earliest memories are painted in shades of comparison and quiet yearning. From the moment my older sister, Claire, entered the world, she became the sun around which our family orbited. Claire was effortlessly beautiful, with a cascade of golden curls and a laugh that seemed to charm everyone she met. She excelled in everything: academics, sports, popularity. She was, in my parents' eyes, their crowning achievement, their golden child. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the observer. I loved books more than playgrounds, spent hours drawing in my sketchbook, and found solace in the quiet corners of our home. My parents described me as thoughtful, which was often a polite euphemism for unremarkable or too sensitive. Their favoritism wasn't overt, not with angry shouts or harsh words, but it was a pervasive, suffocating presence that permeated every aspect of our lives. I remember my 8th birthday. Claire, who was 10, received a gleaming, top-of-the-line racing bicycle, bright red, with all the bells and whistles. My gift: a meticulously wrapped box containing a rather thick, leather-bound dictionary. "Julie, darling," my mother had cooed, her smile stretched a little too thin. "You're such a studious girl, you'll truly appreciate a practical gift like this, won't you?" While Claire zipped around the neighborhood, laughing, I sat quietly, tracing the definitions of words like invisible and yearn, the dictionary feeling heavy and cold in my small hands. The ache in my chest wasn't for a bicycle. It was for the unsaid words, the unacknowledged worth. School was a constant battle for recognition. I poured myself into my studies, driven by a desperate need to earn their praise. In middle school, I spent months perfecting a complex science fair project on renewable energy, working late into the nights, fueled by lukewarm tea and an unwavering determination. I won first place at the regional competition, a massive achievement for a shy 12-year-old. The awards ceremony was held on a Saturday morning. My parents. They were at Claire's state championship volleyball game, cheering wildly from the stands. "Oh, Julie," my mother had said later that evening, vaguely, "we're so proud of you, honey." But Claire really needed us there. The pride I'd felt moments before receiving the ribbon evaporated, replaced by a familiar, bitter taste. It was a pattern that repeated endlessly. My achievements, no matter how significant, were met with lukewarm praise, a dismissive pat on the head, or often, simply ignored. My struggles? Those were met with indifference. "Oh, Julie will figure it out," was their common dismissive refrain, always followed by a doting inquiry about Claire's latest triumph, her latest boyfriend, her latest shopping spree. The deepest, most profound wound, however, came from a place of love. My grandmother, Nana Rose. She was my unwavering sun, the only person in my entire family who truly saw me. She fostered my love for old books, taught me how to identify wildflowers in her sprawling garden, and listened to my wildest dreams without a hint of judgment. Her house, a charming, somewhat eccentric Victorian nestled on a tree-lined street, was my sanctuary. It smelled of lavender, aged paper, and Nana's freshly baked apple pie. It was the only place in the world where I felt truly safe, truly loved, truly seen. When Nana passed away unexpectedly when I was 19, a vital piece of my soul felt ripped away. The grief was immense, suffocating. Her will, however, was a flickering beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. She left me the house. Not Claire, not my parents, but me. The shock waves through the family were immediate and brutal. "It's a colossal burden, Julie," my mother had shrieked, her voice shrill with barely concealed fury. "The property taxes. The upkeep. You're far too young and far too... well, you're just not equipped to handle this kind of responsibility." They descended upon me like vultures, trying to convince me to sell it immediately, promising me a fair share of the profits. But I knew their definition of fair share meant barely enough to cover a deposit on a cramped, tiny apartment somewhere on the outskirts of town. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar to me. It was Nana's heart, her wisdom, her enduring love. It was the only tangible proof that someone in my bloodline believed I was worthy, capable, and deserving of something so significant. That manipulative conversation, that blatant, grasping attempt to coerce me out of my inheritance, became my personal last straw. Their transparent greed, their assumption of my naivete, ignited a simmering fire within me. I wouldn't just hold on to Nana's house. I would hold on to it with every fiber of my being. And I would prove them all catastrophically, undeniably wrong. The very next day, I took Nana's will, clutched tightly in my trembling hands, to a local attorney. Her name was Ms. Davies, a kind, sharp woman in her late 50s who had known Nana for decades. Her office felt like another sanctuary, filled with the comforting scent of leather and old paper. She meticulously went through the will with me, helping me navigate the initial complexities of probate and legal jargon. Her most profound piece of advice wasn't about legal technicalities, though. It was simple, yet incredibly powerful. "Julie, this house is a gift, yes, but it's also a legacy. It ties you to Nana, and it ties you to knowledge. Understand every single word in that document. Every clause, every subclause. Don't just read it. Internalize it." I took her words as a sacred vow. While my parents continued their lavish patronage of Claire, funding her extravagant lifestyle, her endless shopping sprees, and her expensive, largely unfocused university education, I was meticulously forging my own path. I enrolled in community college, taking evening classes, and simultaneously worked 2 grueling jobs during the day. One as a quiet, efficient clerk at a dusty, beloved independent bookstore, the other as a diligent research assistant for a history professor at the local university. My days bled into my nights, fueled by cheap coffee and an unyielding resolve. I lived frugally, meticulously tracking every penny, pouring every spare cent and every available hour into understanding not just the nuances of Nana's will, but the broader landscape of property law, inheritance law, and even the intricate dance of real estate principles. I spent countless nights hunched over textbooks, legal journals, and obscure online courses. My too sensitive nature, once a perceived weakness, had given way to an iron will, a relentless focus. I wasn't merely learning, I was building an arsenal of knowledge, brick by painful brick. I discovered my chosen family, in the most unexpected and beautiful places. Professor Evans, my history mentor at the university, saw something in me beyond a diligent student. He recognized my analytical mind, my insatiable curiosity, and my quiet determination. He pushed me, challenged me, and eventually became instrumental in helping me secure a full scholarship to a prestigious university for my bachelor's degree in business administration with a specialization in real estate and property management. He became the father figure who celebrated my academic triumphs with genuine pride, something my own father had never managed. Then there was Maya, my best friend from community college. She was a fiery, brilliant law student with a quick wit and an even quicker mind. Maya became my sounding board, my legal dictionary in human form. She patiently helped me decipher the most complex legal terms, strategize my long-term plans, and sometimes simply listened as I vented my frustrations over my family's continued dismissal. She was the sister I always wished I had, offering unconditional support and unwavering belief. These individuals, my new, chosen family, provided the unconditional support and recognition that my blood relatives had so cruelly withheld. Their encouragement was the fresh air I desperately needed to breathe. As my knowledge grew, so did my quiet confidence. I started making meticulous improvements to Nana's house, learning basic repairs, gardening techniques, and even a bit of plumbing. I kept impeccable records of every single expense, every repair, every property tax payment. My parents, meanwhile, remained in their blissful bubble of obliviousness. They'd call occasionally, never to ask about my studies or my burgeoning expertise, but to casually drop condescending hints about the market being hot for older properties like Nana's. "You know, Julie, that old house is just going to be a money pit for you," my father would drone. "It's really quite foolish to hold on to such a burden." They'd chuckle about how much work the house must be, completely unaware of the extensive historical research I was doing on the property, the meticulous financial records I was keeping, or the silent, formidable strength I was cultivating. Claire, ever the queen of the backhanded compliment, once condescendingly asked if I was still playing house in Nana's old place, implying I was stuck in a childish fantasy while she was out conquering the world with her lavish lifestyle. They genuinely believed I was floundering, too naive and too meek to manage anything significant, let alone something as valuable and complex as a property inheritance. They never suspected that every single condescending word, every dismissive comment, every unspoken slight, was simply more fuel to my quiet, burning fire. Each one hardened my resolve, sharpening my focus for the inevitable moment when I would turn the tables. I wasn't just preparing. I was waiting. Patiently. The moment I had been preparing for, silently, meticulously, for years, finally arrived. It came in the form of a crisp, official-looking certified letter. The sender? The law firm of my parents' longtime attorney, a notoriously arrogant man named Mr. Thompson. The contents were precisely what I had anticipated. An official notice stating their intent to petition the court for a conservatorship over Nana's property. Their claim that I, Julie Miller, was unfit and incapable of managing the property, and therefore selling it was in my best interest. Translation: they were going to legally force the sale, seize control of the funds, and leave me with literally nothing. To add insult to injury, they scheduled a family meeting at Mr. Thompson's intimidating, overly polished law office, no doubt expecting me to crumble under the weight of their combined authority. I arrived precisely on time, dressed not in the comfortable, practical clothes I usually wore, but in a sharp, elegant charcoal gray suit that Maya had helped me select. It was understated but radiated quiet confidence. My hair was pulled back, my posture straight. My parents and Claire were already there, seated around the large, gleaming mahogany conference table. My mother, in a vibrant silk scarf, wore a patronizingly sympathetic smile. My father, always the stoic but calculating one, had a smug, almost triumphant glint in his eye. Claire, predictably, was scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my presence with a bored flick of her wrist. Mr. Thompson, a portly man with a perpetually condescending sneer and a perfectly knotted tie, began to speak, his voice booming with practiced authority. "Amelia," he started, quickly correcting himself. "Julie, we're here today because your parents, out of deep concern for your future, have your best interests at heart. This property, while a generous gesture from your grandmother, is a significant financial asset, and frankly, you're simply not equipped to handle its complexities. We've already taken the liberty of finding a highly motivated buyer, a developer eager to acquire." "With all due respect, Mr. Thompson," I interrupted, my voice cutting through his pompous drone, steady and clear, "I am perfectly equipped." My mother let out a small, derisive gasp, followed by a tight, fake laugh. "Julie, darling, don't be ridiculous," she simpered. "You barely know how to balance a checkbook. You think you can manage a property with all its legalities and taxes? It's simply too much for you." "Is that so, Mother?" I said, my gaze unflinching as I slowly, deliberately, pulled a thick, impeccably organized binder from my messenger bag. The sound of the binder thudding softly onto the polished table echoed in the sudden silence. Because for the past 5 years, I haven't just balanced a checkbook. I've not only managed all the property taxes, the extensive upkeep, and the necessary renovations on Nana's house, but I've also meticulously studied every single clause, every single line of Nana Rose's will. And I believe you, Mr. Thompson, and my parents, have overlooked a few key, rather significant details. Mr. Thompson, whose smug expression had begun to falter, looked genuinely irritated. He adjusted his tie. Mrs. Miller, we've reviewed the will extensively. It's a standard document. Nothing out of the ordinary that would prevent a conservatorship claim if the inheritor is deemed. Have you, Mr. Thompson? I cut in again, my voice gaining a quiet, formidable power. I opened the binder to a specific page, crisply laminated and highlighted. My finger landed on a particular paragraph. Because Clause 7b explicitly states, and I quote directly from the will, should my granddaughter, Julie Miller, ever be deemed by any legal entity as unfit or incapable of managing this property, the entirety of her accumulated knowledge, studies, and certifications pertaining to property management and real estate law, as well as a demonstrated history of self-sufficiency and financial acumen, shall be presented as irrefutable evidence against such claims. My parents' faces had started to drain of color. Their confident smiles had vanished, replaced by an unsettling pallor. Claire, who had finally looked up from her phone, looked utterly bewildered, her eyes wide. And that's just the beginning, I continued, my voice building, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. My gaze swept from my father's horrified eyes to my mother's trembling lips. Furthermore, Clause 7c, which I'm sure you simply missed, states, furthermore, any attempts by immediate family members to force the sale or seize control of said property without Julie Miller's express written consent shall result in the immediate and irrevocable transfer of said property to a self-sustaining charitable trust, with Julie Miller as the sole lifetime trustee. And, more importantly, the offending family members shall be permanently disinherited from any and all future claims on my estate, or other family assets tied to it, including but not limited to any financial legacies, family heirlooms, or properties previously designated for them in any prior testament or informal agreement. I looked directly at my parents, my eyes meeting theirs, no longer flinching. Nana knew you'd try this. She knew. She spent years meticulously embedding these clauses, not just to secure my future, but to create a legal fortress that would prevent you from exploiting me, from taking what was rightfully mine. Mr. Thompson, who had gone from irritated to visibly sweating, stammered, running a finger around his tight collar. But this is highly unusual. These are incredibly specific and complex clauses. We weren't aware of such intricate. His voice trailed off, his confidence completely shattered. Just as the silence in the room became unbearable, the door to Mr. Thompson's office opened, and Ms. Davies, my attorney, walked in. She looked calm, poised, and utterly in control. She smiled warmly at me, a subtle nod of approval passing between us, then turned to Mr. Thompson. Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. I understand we're discussing Nana Rose's will. Julie, I believe you have something further to present to clear up any lingering misunderstandings? With a small, triumphant smile, I pushed the massive stack of documents across the table. My official real estate license, my certification in advanced property management, my bachelor's degree in business administration with a specialization in property law, and meticulously audited financial records detailing every single repair, every property tax payment, every improvement I'd personally made to Nana's house over the past 5 years. There were even copies of published academic papers I'd co-authored on historical property rights and their impact on modern real estate values. I've been preparing for this day for years, I stated, my voice now resonant with the full weight of my hard-won knowledge. I looked at my parents, their faces mottled with shock and fury. I'm not unfit, Mother. I'm not incapable, Father. I'm more than capable. In fact, through my research, I've even identified several unacknowledged historical easement rights connected to the property that could significantly increase its value. Something your expert, buyer, and thorough legal team clearly missed. My mother's jaw literally dropped, her perfectly made-up face contorting in a grotesque mask of disbelief. My father's complexion was ashen, his usual composure utterly shattered. Claire, for the first time in her life, was utterly silent, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Mr. Thompson was practically a puddle in his expensive suit, muttering apologies and trying to regain some semblance of dignity. The external validation, the crucial confirmation, came from Ms. Davies, who now stood beside me, a knowing, almost proud smile on her face, silently confirming every single word I'd uttered. The tables hadn't just turned. They had been flipped with a violent, satisfying crash. The meeting ended in a flurry of stammered excuses from Mr. Thompson and a stunned, embarrassed silence from my parents and Claire. "Julie, you tricked us," my mother eventually managed to stammer, her voice thick with wounded pride and disbelief. "No, Mother," I replied calmly, packing my documents back into my binder, my hands no longer trembling. "Nana protected me, and I simply paid attention to her wisdom, something you never bothered to do." In the weeks and months that followed, they tried, desperately, to mend fences. There were tearful phone calls from my mother, full of hollow apologies and desperate pleas for me to reconsider selling the house and sharing the newfound, increased value. My father, ever the manipulator, tried to play the "we're family" card, hinting at old times and the importance of sticking together. Claire even reached out, offering to help me decorate the house, a transparent attempt to get her foot back in the door. I politely, but firmly, declined every single overture. The disinheritance clause had done its job. They knew, with chilling clarity, that any further attempts to manipulate or control me would sever their last remaining ties to Nana's wider, substantial estate, which had been structured to distribute its remaining wealth based on a complex web of clauses that centered on the recipient's relationship with Nana and, by extension, me. Their greed had trapped them in their own web. The power dynamic within the entire family shifted completely and irrevocably. They no longer held any sway over me, no leverage, no psychological hold. I was free. My chosen family, Ms. Davies, Professor Evans, Maya, and my now fiancé Mark, who had patiently supported me through all my grueling studies and quiet resilience, became my true anchors. They were the ones who had seen my worth when my own blood family couldn't or wouldn't. They celebrated my successes, comforted me in my rare moments of doubt, and reminded me of the strength I possessed. Nana's house, no longer just a cherished memory or a burden, became the thriving headquarters for my successful property management and real estate consulting business. The historical easements I discovered, painstakingly researched, and legally confirmed, indeed significantly increased the property's market value beyond anything my parents or their lawyer had imagined. This increased value, combined with my rapidly expanding business, allowed me to not only sustain Nana's legacy but to invest in other properties, growing my portfolio and building a thriving, independent career that far surpassed anything Claire or my parents could ever boast. I even established a small private scholarship fund in Nana's name, specifically for students pursuing studies in history or property law, ensuring her legacy of quiet support continued to benefit others. I finally found an internal peace I'd craved my entire life. The desperate need for validation, for their approval, that had gnawed at me for so long, became an irrelevant, distant whisper. My worth was no longer defined by their opinions, their dismissals, or their hollow praise. It was defined by my resilience, my hard-won knowledge, and the profound, unconditional love of the people who truly saw and valued me for who I was. Nana's house isn't just a home, it's a monument to my victory, a testament to the power of quiet determination, and a constant, beautiful reminder that true family is built on respect, empathy, and unwavering support, not just the arbitrary connection of blood. My story, Julie's story, is a testament to the fact that sometimes, the greatest betrayals in our lives can, paradoxically, lead to the greatest strengths. The pain inflicted by others, particularly those who should have loved you unconditionally, can be transformed into the very fuel that propels you to unprecedented heights. Your true worth, your inherent value, is not, and never will be, determined by those who try to diminish you. It is forged in your struggles, celebrated in your quiet, personal victories, and cemented by your unwavering belief in yourself. If you're feeling undervalued, if you're battling against the suffocating expectations or manipulative schemes of others, remember this. You possess the innate power to protect your peace, to define your own success, and to chart your own course. Build your knowledge, cultivate your skills, find your allies, your chosen family, and when the time comes, stand firm in your truth. Do not let anyone dictate your worth. Do not let them steal your legacy. Like and subscribe if this resonated deeply with you. And please, I urge you, share your own stories of overcoming adversity, of quiet triumphs, of finding your voice, in the comments below. Your journey, your resilience, could be the beacon of inspiration someone else desperately needs to see. And remember, always remember, sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't loud or destructive. Sometimes, the most profound revenge is simply living a life they never, ever thought you were capable of.